Well, the update is finally here. Holy moly! We got a lot to talk about, and I'm not going to delay any longer. In this video, I just want to give you a heads up. I have a lot more to explore here, okay? We're going to jump over. We're going to knock out a couple of daily tasks here. We have not yet fought the boss as of the recording of this. I'm going to be doing that separately because I want to spend some time and really kind of deep dive on that. I also don't want to spoil it for anybody that doesn't want it to be spoiled, but I know there are going to be many questions about how to do it the most efficient way. So we got to take a couple of chances at looking at that. So we're not going to cover that in this video. In addition, there is a ton of changes. There's a whole lot. There's recipe changes. There's a whole bunch of loot adjustments here. I can't cover that all in this video. I'm going to do a separate video later this week covering all that, and I do want to spend some additional time grinding, but I am going to, in this video, talk about some tips, talk about some tricks, talk about a few things that I think you should focus on to help your new island region grind. With that being said, initial impressions, I really like the update. Haven't fought the boss yet. I have heard and I have seen much harder than Borealis. I don't know how I feel about that until we get a chance to fight him. I'm not mad if he is a little bit more difficult, but obviously that's on a scale. I do like some of the new icon updates. I think these are pretty cool. Some visual changes. We've got a few additional adjustments and things like that. Some of the loot changes I'm actually pretty excited about, and some of the loot changes I'm not excited about. But we'll cover that here in a future video. But overall, I like the new update. Just on the surface level, I've been able to play it for, a day and some change now at this point. I've been grinding a little bit of resources. I like the location for the most part. I like the enemies. So it's been pretty neat. I really like the update and the addition of the old mine. I think this is probably one of the better locations. The updates to Sand Quarry, I'm actually really excited about. I think Sand Quarry, for those that are just jumping in or trying to figure out where do you need to be spending some time, this is probably one of the best locations. The loot here is absolutely great. The chests that are here at this location are fantastic. We'll jump into that here in just a second. And that island is still difficult, but in a different way. I do think there are going to be some efficient ways to actually get some resources from this. But I need to kind of test a few more theories here. The big thing that I will take away from this is inhalers are awesome. So whatever you can do to stock up on that, go ahead and do that. If you are doing the Port Lab grind, it is 10 times easier now because seaweed is in abundance. Well, that's probably one of the biggest things I've been most impressed with the update is that the resource shifts. There are always shifts with resources. Seaweed went from being one of the most, I don't want to say like difficult thing to farm, but it was really hard to get in large quantities. You could obviously at the port, inside Port Lab, you could get your seaweed farm, and that was a good source of it, but you needed algae to do that, and you had to actually build the seaweed farm. Now, seaweed is in abundance, and seaweed is so helpful when going in and doing Port Lab runs. So for you Port Lab grinders out there, I think that's going to be a lot more accessible now, which is really, really nice. Seaweed obviously has a lot more uses. Chemistry Station and a whole bunch of the benches have a lot more uses. And I think you are going to be very, very busy grinding up resources, and your base is going to be very busy refining those resources. There's a ton here. I will say up front, the biggest thing that I noticed, the biggest issue is halite. Okay. Spore samples, very easy to get. With the abundance of seaweed, iodine is very easy to get. If you're not too familiar with where all this stuff comes from, we'll show you here. But spore samples you get off of killing zombies. Iodine, you used to have a different craft. It's a new craft now. It's simply seaweed in your medical table here, and very easy. Very easy. It takes some time. A lot of the resource crafting times probably need a little bit of adjustment because some of these really do take a while. So small gripe, but it is noticeable. But this is pretty easy. Very easy. 2 seaweed, 1 iodine. Very easy. Iodine's going to be very, very helpful. I was just getting stacks and stacks of seaweed from my grinding runs. But Halite is the one that is super, super important. Sporicide is extremely important for your armor and your weapon crafts. And the weapons and the armor here are going to be very important for these locations. And I think this is going to be the blocker. I think Halite specifically, calling it now, I think this is going to be the resource that is blocked, because just from each of the locations, you can get it from the old mine and you can get it from Dead Island. You just don't walk away with a large amount. On average, I was getting between 8 and 9. You get like 2 to 3 per mineral deposit, and there's typically only like 3 at each of those locations. That's not a lot. Now, there are some resources. There's a couple crates I think you can get this in. You can find Sporicide in crates at those locations as well, so that can help to boost it up a little bit. But this is tough. Spore blocker, easy. You just got to make it. Not a big deal here. Chemistry station, again, a lot more helpful than it has been, which is really, really cool. I do know that the craft changed for this. They made the chemistry station easier. Let me take a quick look because we had ours built already. I passed it as I always do. There it is. Not too bad. Not too bad. Outside of you need iodine to build it, but you will find some. That's not too bad. You can grind this up. It is in the crates. The crates at each of the locations, I have been very impressed with. The amount of resources you can get and what you can find there. They're probably some of the best crates, just like open world crates in the game. I'm going to just say that right now. The variety, the resources you can get, and what's inside of them, fantastic. I found a steel bar in one. Obviously, Bloodhound perk and a few other things are helping from that perspective, but that was really cool, and hopefully we'll have a chance to show that here a little bit later on. This is not too bad. I will say this too. I have not tested very much the enhanced armor here. The anti-spore armor is actually quite durable. When we get to locations, I'm going to talk a few things about how to kind of grind up and just a few tips and tricks to maybe get some extra life out of this armor. But if you don't get to maximum red spore infection, this armor lasted me like many runs. Many runs. And I actually really appreciate that. I was really worried that this armor was going to be a little flimsy, and therefore you're going to have to continue to be grinding a bunch of these resources. I feel like you're going to be able to get pretty good use out of this, and the anti-spore armor is enough to handle all of the basic locations. You can do Sand Quarry, you don't even need it for that, but the old mine and even Dead Island, the anti-spore basic armor is totally fine. So that was really nice. Again, I need to do a little bit more testing here with the enhanced stuff. Looks way cooler, but it is obviously a much bigger resource investment, specifically the fact that you're dropping in titanium. That's really probably the only bad part about this. Every one of them takes some amount of copper. Lenses, again, for those of you that haven't been playing the game, these will be a little bit harder, but you can refine them now, which is nice. Air filters, I can also see being a little bit of a problem for those that are a little bit newer, and maybe even rubber. This is definitely like later-ish game content, not late game content, but definitely later game. Hopefully you've been able to grind up some of these, but you're finding a lot of these resources. Air filters and rubber you're finding in those crates, which is really nice. The other big thing here is going to be able to craft weapons. The anti-spore pistol is great. It's totally fine. It does the job. It's got good durability. This is not a bad craft at all, especially once you just farm up a little bit of thick leather at the Sand Quarry. The rest of this, you should be able to grind it out. Springs are a lot more abundant now too, so if you're on your weapon modification grind, I honestly think the islands are going to be really good for you. There's crates that you're finding a handful of these in every time you go. Super nice. So anti-spore rifle, I think, is probably overall the best weapon. And I say this just because the fire rate, the damage that this is able to do, very solid. And this isn't a bad craft outside, again, of the Sporicide, which if you can grind up this resource and get a decent stockpile, I feel like you're probably just making pistols and rifles, and you're having a lot of success here. I have not yet tested the Anti-Spore sniper rifle. It's huge. It looks sweet. It's absolutely huge. It looks sweet. The big issue here, titanium alloy, not even necessarily hard to get, because titanium has become a lot more accessible with the updates to the crafts. If you're not familiar, you're going to be able to go in, you're going to be able to take 5 titanium ore, and you can smelt it down into a titanium bar. That's pretty cool. It takes a while. It's not a short craft, but you can get there. And I was getting 20 to 25 per run on Dead Island, which that's pretty good. That is pretty good. I was pretty happy with that. That's 5 titanium. So again, we'll dive into some deep discussions and some tips and tricks on some farming methods. I'm going to say this just here very quickly. The repair station is going to absolutely be your best friend. If you are not sure, if you are getting to the boat or you have it unlocked and you're starting your quest and your journey on the survivor's path to getting through this and whatever the case may be, and you've done a little bit of the northern area and you have some genomes and you're like, what should I spend it on? Previously, I would have said some of the workbenches or some of the storages that are available, because they're extremely helpful. All that being said, I think you should absolutely focus on the repair station now. And here's why. These weapons that we have access to, specifically something like an anti-spore rifle, which again, I feel like is going to be capped behind your ability to get Sporicide. You don't throw in the Sporicide, and you throw in some lenses. Now, is 20 lenses a lot? Maybe. It depends. It depends where you are in the game. But I will tell you, I feel like 20 lenses is probably a little bit easier to get than an abundance of Sporicide. Is it easier to get 20 lenses than 4 Sporicide? I don't really know. That's going to be kind of hard to determine, at least at this point. However, if you have some of these already, this is absolutely where you want to spend your resources, in my opinion. That's going to give you extra durability out of these. That's going to make the ability to continue to grind these locations that much easier. You queue this up when you go to bed or step away from the game, bam, 20 minutes later, you're ready to rock and roll, and you're going to do fine. I'm going to say the same thing for these. Anti-Spore pistol. Now, if you don't have access to a ton of springs, that's fine, but glass is super, super easy to make. I don't particularly like the repair on this. It's 2% per glass, but honestly, I would rather spend glass than it would be to probably spend the resources for those. Again, it's going to be up to you in terms of figuring out what resources you have available, but I think in the long run, for me, that's probably a little bit better, especially if you are really short on springs. Keeping them up and being able to use glass to repair them is absolutely the way that you want to go. The only one that I'm not super excited about, and I'm not the biggest fan of, I want to be able to repair this armor. Again, I think that's really, really smart. Comparative to the northern zone, this armor now doesn't upgrade. One of the big things that I think you could take big advantage of, and was one of my tips for grinding the northern zone, is you could take this armor, build the basic version, use it to a low durability, and then you need it to upgrade. We moved away from that pattern. This is actually not one of the first times, but we've had this pattern before with beanies into reinforced. You had fur into reinforced, right? There's kind of a pattern built here. You don't have that, unfortunately. That might be a good thing, might be a bad thing. In my opinion, it's kind of bad because you're kind of spending resources for this that you then can't utilize up into this resource, but it is what it is. So I was really hopeful that this repair wasn't going to be too bad. The repair, I'm going to be honest, on the armor is pretty horrendous. It's not good. It's 2% for copper, which again is sort of easier now. There you do get some copper. You have some opportunity to pick it up in the crates. You're going to get some copper ore, and it's 2% for the thick leather. This is the only one I'm not super thrilled about. I wish this was a little bit easier to repair. If you have an abundance of copper, I do think that this isn't terrible. Or thick leather once you get an opportunity to get stockpiled, especially if you're hitting Sand Quarry. but you make that decision. This one I'm not super thrilled about. The last one that I do think is pretty interesting is manual earth drills can also be repaired using engines, and you actually get a pretty good return. There comes a point where once you've built your boat, once you've crafted your ATV and you've dropped in your engines for that, engines kind of lose their necessity. You start to stock them up, probably don't have a ton of use for them. I have many, even on my free-to-play account. This is a pretty interesting way to do that if you want to keep a manual earth drill. If this is really just an opportunity for you to save steel. The craft for the manual earth drill is much easier now, which is really nice. It reduced by like 10 steel, I think, so that's great. You do throw in a couple of engines. The one big thing that I actually think you will want to save is both thermite, outside of steel, of course, thermite and your gasoline. Gasoline is extremely more important now because of the boat and moving across the islands. So if you want, not a bad in the repair station, you can drop this in and you can just use engines to repair it. Feels pretty good. And honestly, that's going to be a little bit of what I do instead of having to craft these all the time and use up the thermite and those other resources. So a couple of good tips up front here. Hopefully that's helpful. Lots more to come. If you have anything else that you've noticed down below in your grinding sessions or that you found helpful, by all means. But let me get a few things repaired here and then let's jump over and I will showcase. I'm going to knock out a couple of tasks and I'll talk to you a little bit about a few of the locations, some tips that I found helpful so far. Okay, we're jumping into Sand Quarry here. We have a daily task here, and it's interesting because as we had seen with the northern location, it looks like the daily tasks are driving not only what spawns at the location, but also the resistance requirements you have. One thing I didn't cover, and I'm going to talk about in a future video here, is protection from spores and getting that protection up. We now see down here at the bottom very much like cold resistance and radiation resistance. We have spore resistance. As anticipated, basic armors do, in some aspects, provide some protection from spores. So I'm going to be playing around with some shifts, but essentially what I'm noticing is that you can get some decent spore protection by wearing, for instance, your anti-spore mask and maybe your anti-spore jacket. The chest armor giving the most at 5, which is pretty good. Your feet armor, with the exception of these boots, interesting enough, don't typically give that, but they do in this regard. So there might be some combinations of some armor here that work out that you don't necessarily need the full set as well. But we'll dive into that here in the future, again, when I get a chance to take a look at a few things. Now we're on some tasks here, and that's interesting. I didn't think I was going to get noticed there. One of the big things to kind of comment on is the fact that if you're coming to one of these more basic locations, I really don't think you need necessarily to bring these spore weapons. I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because while the damage reduction is significant, especially if you have a true friend dog or a drone and some ability to deal some additional damage, you can really probably save these weapons for the more difficult locations. Sneak attacks are also going to be one of your best friends. They are absolutely still devastating and helpful. And as you can see here, again, the crates in these locations are just so good. Now, this doesn't seem like a lot, but if you were to go and kind of bounce back and forth and farm this up, you just got titanium ore essentially without spending anything. You hit this crate a couple of times and get lucky on that roll. You've got a titanium bar. That's going to be very, very helpful for you. So I really do think that sneak attacks are going to be important. And as we jump over to Old Mine and as we take a look over at the Dead Island, dodging some enemies is also just going to be important. Here you have the Spore Spitter. Don't get close to this thing if you can avoid it. If it hits you with a regular attack, it will start to punch you. But very much like the Transport Hub Spitters, if you just stay at range and dodge its spitting attack, it will continue to do that at you for a long time. Again, here, we're going to go ahead, and because we were able to sneak up, these locations are now a little bit more of a maze. There's a lot more obstacles here. I think that actually benefits you if you are somebody that doesn't mind sneak and crit attacking enemies, because in many instances, I think you're going to be in pretty good position, or there's some flanking opportunities for you to get around. So you see there, now, was that great in terms of 59 damage? Yes, it was. That was pretty good. Was it a full power attack? No, because of the resistance that these spore enemies have. But at the same time, I essentially saved like a shot, maybe 2 shots out of the spore pistol by being able to get that sneak attack. So I strongly recommend trying to make good use of those sneak attacks when you can. Certainly you can't do it on everything, but that is really, really helpful. I think the other thing that's helping from the perspective of durability for the armor is just making sure that most of these enemies are kind of slow. And this new armor, especially the speed of the boots, is pretty good. So you can generally stay away from a lot of enemies, and that's pretty nice. So we get what, 5% speed as comparative to tactical boots at 7. Not bad, not a huge downgrade for this. This is 6% speed, so pretty good movement. And it seems like these enemies, some of them at least, are moving, pretty slow. Last comment I will just make is inhalers are absolutely fantastic. And if you don't have a big stockpile of these, I would strongly recommend that you hang on to them, especially for trips to like Dead Island, for instance. But if you do have a stockpile, this is 100% going to be the preferred method for healing in these locations. Really just mainly because you can keep yourself from getting to red spores. If you're not familiar, or you don't know or didn't know, if you get to full spores while you're at that, and while that spore damage essentially ticks down, your armor takes damage as well. Let me see if I can showcase that here, maybe with this big guy. Let's get in here and get a spore floater bloater attack. These guys under 50 health. Takes 4 hits to get you here. Okay, so I screwed it up. All right, well, I'm gonna take it here, and I'm gonna heal. And what you're gonna notice is that this is ticking down. See that? While we have the spores on. So hit your inhaler. As soon as it goes red, hit the inhaler. It completely goes away. You will heal up as well, which is really, really nice. The healing has been buffed from these, which is awesome. And inhalers are just going to be your best friend. And obviously you can still use, whatever, your healing capabilities and some of the other things to good effect. So that was another one of the crates that you're going to see at this location. It's going to have your food. I think... I'm not sure if that's the one that can have iodine in it. There is one that can. It might not be that one, or it might be that one. Here, just get this guy down to under 50 health. He will go boom, and then these parasites, all you need to do is step on them. And then obviously, avoid the big black puddles of spory sludge on the ground. They will hurt you. That's not good. Don't stand in them. Maybe that goes without saying, but some people are... maybe don't know that, I guess. So I should point out the things that are impactful. So again, stay away from these guys. Don't stand in it like I did. That was silly of me. Shoot them. And again, as you're noticing here, lots of opportunities in these locations to get sneak attacks. Now, Sand Quarry typically doesn't have these spore enemies in it. The reason it is because we have this setup sensors task for our daily tasks to go ahead and to grind. So I think that's all I have to say for this location very quickly. Let me finish up my daily task here. I want to jump over to the old mine, just talk a little bit about... I'm going to jump over to Dead Island. I want to talk about a couple other things that I noticed here that might be helpful for you as you're headed to those locations. Be there in just a second. Okay, we're here at Dead Island. There's a couple of important things to note. First and foremost here, as you are out grinding this location, if you are going to grind this location, you're going to notice you need increased resistance. Now, you can meet that requirement by slapping on your upgraded armor set, which is not a bad idea if you have access to it. If not, you can really work this location with this anti-spore armor. Just have inhalers on you. That's going to be your biggest thing. The other thing you're going to notice is after you do your tasks and you head back here, you're going to notice that parasites continue to come and essentially seek you out. You're going to notice inside each of the caves, and I believe there's anywhere between 2 to 3 caves. I think on average there's 2. Have I ever found 3? Might just be 2. We have to do some more grinding here. Is that you're going to have cocoons. You're going to have multiple cocoons that are continue to send out these parasites at that location, essentially until you clear them. Now, they are annoying, but they are also very easy to just get rid of by stepping on. So strong recommendation that, honestly, you just avoid them. I mean that. Step on them when they're out here in the locations. Obviously, you got to be a little bit more mindful. This isn't some place that you're going to be able to like kind of mindlessly clear unless you obviously have a lot of weapons and, you know, you've grinded it up. And if you're able to do that, great. But what I would really recommend is that, essentially, you just avoid them. We'll try to get over to a cave so that I can show you kind of what that looks like. This is going to be one of the best locations, I think, obviously, for getting titanium and halite, 2 of the resources that I think are going to be very, very important. The other thing is you have these spore, whatever these are called, and they'll send out this big, you know, toxic bubble of sporiness. I'm not wasting resources on those. I'm really not. There's no reason. They don't give you anything for killing them. Outside of them being a nuisance and getting in your way, here's one of the cocoons right here. Just avoid them. Just avoid this. This is going to continue to throw these guys at you, which again, isn't the most fun thing to deal with by any means, but is also not really that important to take down. You can avoid them, dodge this. You've got your bloaters here. It'll continue to throw these spores at you. Or these little parasites, but really, again, not really a concern. You can step on these things. These cocoons have a ton of health, and that is in itself kind of annoying, but totally avoidable. We'll run to this side. We're going to be able to open this crate up, send this stuff on, and run away from this. And this one is generally taken care of, and I'm going to leave it alone. I just don't think it's worth the resources at this point. Now, killing the cocoons does give you some spores, some spore samples. So if you are in like dire need of those, you can pick them up. It's a decent rate of them as well. It's more than a normal enemy. I think it's in the range of like 8 or so. So if you, again, really need those, you can do that. Other than that, leave them alone. Save your resources. Save your resources. Don't kill these guys. Just run through them. Time it a little bit better than I did, obviously, because you don't want to have to go and take any of the spore damage, if you will. But other than that, I think you're good. And a lot of this location, I am realizing you're gonna have. Didn't think I was inside of that. A lot of this location, you are gonna have enemies that push you. You're gonna have these spore spitters that are gonna be pretty aggressive to you, but in many of this too, you can avoid a lot of the floater bloaters, and it's really just going to be these spitters that aggressively attack you. So that's more to follow on this location, like I said, but I wanted to give some just upfront thoughts here. I have some tasks to grind down. I'm going to be jumping in, fighting the boss here, and recording that, and we'll be doing that here in a future video. But hopefully this was some helpful tips for you. Again, we'll be doing some deep dives as we get I just need a few more days to test out a few theories, test out a handful of other things. But I wanted to get this out to you. And again, I just want to say I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying this. I am enjoying the new locations. I'm enjoying the new survivor's path and the resources. And I think there are going to be some things to kind of work on and some things to focus on. I really do think halite is going to be a big blocker for a lot of folks. So any ways that we can find to get that resource and grind it up efficiently, I think is going to be very, very helpful. So if you had your hands on the update here for a day or two by the time you see this video, just let me know what you think. I'm interested. Are you enjoying it? Do you have access to it? That's the first big one. Hopefully you do. If you haven't built your boat, I really do think that this is going to be a good help for you. Survivor's Path seems like it has some pretty good resources in it. in terms of the island region and the boat here. You're getting some pumps, you're getting some of these. If you go ahead and do buy the enhanced version of this, you're going to get some help with some propellers, which is not bad. Some other cool resources in this too. You know, obviously access to the crossbow, and some of the blueprints have changed up a little bit. And then you get to the island region here, and again, pretty good little chunk of resources. I will probably get the ultra version at some point here shortly, and just pick up some of these extra resources to help our grind. But other than that, you get some good access to this, and that's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. I'm pretty excited about it. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Lots more island region content here coming up very, very soon. Again, we'll be fighting the boss here and trying to find some strategies to take him down efficiently and effectively. But I'm a Doc. If you want to join our Discord, links in the description. Hit that subscribe button for me. Really do appreciate it. Trying to grind to 10K. That's our next big channel milestone. Really appreciate all the support. And like I said, we do lots of Last Stand Earth content, so stay tuned for more. See you in the next one. Peace.